Rotten Musical Tomatoes, 1.1 billion creators, and anybody got a feel-good story? Welcome to the Unlimited Supply Podcast, your daily music business TLDR in your ear, powered by 30 years of Been There, Done That, and brought to you by No Disc, helping music technology and finance companies navigate the music industry and partnered with Digital Music News. It's October 27th, 2025. I'm Lars Murray in NYC. It's Monday, where we talk about what happened over the weekend and what is on deck for the week ahead. Over the weekend, well, a bunch of feel-good stories. Not really. On Friday, the always reliable, always readable Steve Knopper posted a story in Billboard entitled, "Will Bruce Springsteen Biopic Boost the Value of His Music Catalog? Sony is Betting on It." It's a good piece that provides a rough outline of the broad array of benefits that a music biopic can confer upon a catalog, and it juxtaposes some of the economics against the queeners and rods of catalog investment pouring into music. After all, the reason a queener is $1 billion largely has to do with the Queen movie Bohemian Rhapsody. Turns out, not surprisingly, whether the movie does well or poorly, the sheer amount of marketing exposure a movie gets should create more awareness and thus more streaming, according to Sony Music's head of catalog marketing, Monica Cornia. The goal is to raise the artist's streaming baseline, as happened with Bohemian Rhapsody and the Dylan biopic A Complete Unknown. On that tip, it's hard to argue that Deliver Me From Nowhere will not deliver. But where Deliver Me From Nowhere did not deliver over the weekend was at the box office. Over at Variety, Rebecca Rubin had the report that the Springsteen flick grossed only $9 million, a little more than half the number one film of the week, Chainsaw Man, a Japanese flick that rallied the manga nerds in a way that Carmy from the Bear could not rally the Springsteen nerds. Of course, there may be more movie upside in the Springsteen catalog. In fact, there probably is. After all, The Making of Nebraska does not exactly represent the full measure and majesty of what the boss accomplished, and didn't have Springsteen fans rushing to the cinema. 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yikes. Personally, I was occupied with another music flick this weekend, but more about that later. Last week, we duly reported Leor Cohen's statement that YouTube had put 8 queeners, or $8 billion, into the music industry over the past year. We also reported that that number could be a whole lot of things. And over at Digital Music News, Paul Resnikoff reported that one of those things is that it's still far behind not only Spotify, but also Apple Music and Amazon Music in the crucial U.S. paid subscriber count sweepstakes. And with U.S. subscriber growth pretty much stalled across the board, the battle for subscriptions is now a zero-sum battle between the top players, with YouTube Music paid subscriptions numbering about a third of Amazon's and about a fifth of each of Apple Music and Spotify's numbers. There certainly is room for some dynamics in the marketplace. After all, tech never stands still, and the switching costs between platforms continue to diminish. And even the small but mighty Qobuz fought its way into the top 5 music apps last week. There's a feel-good story. Nonetheless, kudos to Resnikoff for doing the math and the analysis on the overall U.S. streaming market over at Digital Music News. DMN was also on top of Spotify developments over the weekend, as has been predicted in multiple places. Spotify is going to have to raise its prices if it wants to keep growing in top markets. And to that end, Dylan Smith reported that Spotify UK is going to jack its prices up to £12.99 a month. Meanwhile, the Bundlegate legal saga marches on as Spotify fired its latest salvo at the publishing interest, challenging it over its strategy of reducing content costs by bundling otherwise fairly irrelevant ebooks with the music on the platform. Not much new here, just a reminder that Bundlegate is still a thing. Anybody got a feel-good story? Someone, anyone, as the TikTok USA saga may or may not be drawing to a close. On Friday, also at Digital Music News, they are on fire this week, Ashley King reported that TikTok Music had laid off employees last week, which sucks. Condolences to those affected. All I can say is I have been through a couple of corporate restructurings, both as a survivor and as a casualty. There's always something better on the other side. That side is the creator economy. Last week, Ben Woods and Mark Key of Media Research posted their report on the creator economy, The Road to 1 Billion Creators. MIDIA, through Mark Mulligan and Tatiana Cirizano, has a track record of getting stuff like this right, so it's worth a read. Among the top-line predictions in the Media Creator Report is the number of global creators will increase 76% to 1.1 billion between 2025 and 2032, and this year they're predicting 16 to 20% growth across ads, subscriptions, and tipping. I'm a little skeptical of the 1.1 billion creators mark. Anecdotally, I'm already seeing generational shift from creation to consumption among Gen Alpha, not to mention AI both giveth and taketh away. But these guys do real research. It's worth a read over at Media. Looking at the week ahead, speaking of corporate restructuring that I was a part of, it's earnings season again, and the first up is going to be SiriusXM on Thursday. It'll be interesting to see if there's a resolution to their Howard Stern situation before that. That could move the stock, but it's always interesting, if not fun, to see how SXM's Jennifer Witz will keep the plates spinning. Also on Thursday, Universal Music Group will have its Q3 earnings call, which should be more fun than Sirius's, though if it's not, it's likely to be a reflection more of a weakening market than of a weakening of Universal's industry stranglehold. And that's it for Monday. Our pick of the week was predetermined over the weekend when I decided to watch Spike Lee's latest movie, Highest to Lowest. I mean, Spike Lee, Denzel Washington, A$AP Rocky, Jeffrey Wright, Ice Spice, and New York City as the stars, and an 84% rating on Rotten Tomatoes? What could go wrong? Well, there is literally not enough time to list what went wrong. Plot holes large enough to drive a Rivian or a Rolls through, an understanding of music industry economics and New York real estate economics that borders on the comical beyond the most shallow nod to the murkiness and opacity of label finance. I mean, the fulcrum of the story is .17 rods, which should be chump change for the so-called king of the music industry. For God's sake, hock the Basquiat, dude. Not to mention an understanding of social media and its relationship to the music industry economics that borders on the comical, and an understanding of the creator economy and its relationship to music industry economics that borders on the comical. And that's not even to mention an orchestral score right out of a 1970s made-for-TV movie that borders on the comical, and a general paucity of the hip-hop, R&B, and pop of the last 30 years that supposedly made the main character so successful. I suppose the movie succeeds on one level. It's a portrait of a once great talent approaching 70 and losing touch. And coming from the guy who brought us brilliant films like Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, and even more recently Inside Man and the underrated 25th Hour, that's very meta for Spike. I have practically a page of notes on how many things took me right out of this movie. There are far too many to list here beyond the ones I already did. Highest to Lowest did rivet me, though, as a hate watch, as it piled implausibility on top of implausibility, and I had to hit pause repeatedly to go on Reddit to make sure it wasn't just me. It's not just me. Basically, the only thing that rings true in this movie is A$AP Rocky trolling Denzel's character for being old and out of touch. Touché. That's our pick of the week. Spike Lee's Highest to Lowest. It's craptastic. Support for the Unlimited Supply podcast is provided by RoyFi. If you're a label, distributor, or publisher and you want to take advantage of other people's money and technology to provide advances, let's have a chat. And by Hangout.fm. Hangout by Turntable Labs is the new social listening platform where users connect, discover new music, and play over 100 million songs with their friends and family. If you like what you hear, please hit that follow button wherever you get your pods. I live for your praise and encouragement, but it really helps if you share that praise as a rating and or a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify, and tell a friend or three. Links are in the show notes, but you can also visit unlimitedsupplypod.com to sign up for our newsletter, to tell us what you think about the show, to suggest feature ideas, to feed us info, to feed us lunch, to call us out on our dubious assertions, and to tell us what we're missing out on. I'm Lars Murray, and remember, in this business, no conflict means no interest.